Welcome to the recap of the Talk with Mrs. Gibson meeting from March 6, 2018. The agenda was the same at both meetings, and as you can see, we opened the floor up to parents, which at both meetings there was nothing that was brought to immediate attention. The Sarc survey was discussed, LCAP information and feedback was discussed, we reviewed some items with regard to safety, and then at the end of the meeting I answered any questions, comments, or concerns. When we briefly talked about the Sarc survey at this last meeting, we talked about the timeline in which it was presented, how it was available online, that there were hard copies available, and that it took about 5 minutes to complete. As most of you were aware, our goal was 85% completion rate for students to get an extra 15-minute recess. Unfortunately, we did not hit that goal of 85%, but we did reach the goal of 61%, which was an increase from last year, so we are very pleased with those results. Thank you to everyone who provided feedback. Also, we talked about how teachers and students have already taken the Sarc survey, and while we have not looked at teacher results quite yet, students' results were in and they were very pleased. Actually, one of the strengths that they shared with us is that they feel safe on campus. So even with regards to everything going on right now in our society, our students feel safe at Reagan. They also talked about their number one concern, which we have heard before in T-Wolf Voice, which is the cleanliness of the bathrooms. And we'll be working with our custodial staff and our students to make sure we address that issue. One of the main purposes of this meeting was to talk about LCAP. What is LCAP? LCAP is the Local Control Accountability Plan. It's a 3-year plan. It's updated annually, and it gives us an opportunity to provide a roadmap of strategies and services for our students that we can reflect on as a district, whether we're a parent, employee, or a student ourselves. It also is a plan that works toward eliminating the achievement gaps for all students, and it primarily focuses on foster youth, English language learners, and low-income students. As part of the LCAP plan, we look at the Local Control Funding Formula, or another acronym, which would be LCFF. This is a very simple graphic, but it helps us understand exactly how Clovis Unified gets funds. So every district in the state receives a base grant, as you can see at the bottom of the glass. And then in turn, some people receive a supplemental grant, which is based on your English language learners, low income, and foster youth students. And last but not least, at the top of what you would consider the glass would be a concentration grant, which is additional funds also based off of students who are English language learners, low income, and foster youth. But in order to receive these funds as a concentration grant, you must have a percentage of those students fall within 55% or higher. Clovis Unified is only at 42.33%, and thus we receive less funding than any surrounding district. After reviewing the last slide, you can see exactly how Clovis Unified receives less funding. This is just another graphic to show how we receive less funding per student with regards to other districts. So for example, Clovis Unified receives a little under $9,500 per student, whereas even a fellow school district or a neighboring school district like Madera receives close to $13,000 per student. That is a big discrepancy, but the neat thing about Clovis is we definitely do more with less. Another thing we talked about at the meeting was the California School Dashboard. This is the new system that the state uses in order to evaluate a school and or district. So certain state indicators that are looked at yearly are chronic absenteeism, which actually is not available yet, suspension rates is K through 12, English language learner progress K through 12, graduation rate is only at the secondary level, college and career readiness is also not available yet, and then we also get rated or evaluated on academic indicators based off of ELA or English language arts and grades 3 through 8 and mathematics grades 3 through 8. When you actually go to the dashboard and look at each of those indicators, they will be ranked based off of these colored graphics, which actually look like Trivial Pursuit pieces or colored pies. So obviously you would like most of your performances or the indicators to be in blue or green, and in turn they could also be in yellow, orange, or red, which means that you have something in place in order to increase them for the next school year. In looking at our district's results as a whole, this is what an equity report would look like. As you can see, we are blue and green in most of the indicators that the state rates us on, except for in suspension rates. And thus, we need to look at suspension rates a little bit more closely as a district to see what interventions we can put in place to make sure that our suspension rates actually go down. To bring the dashboard more closer to home, we can look at Reagan specifically as well. The actual website, you could actually just go to Google and type in California School Dashboard, and you could be able to see this as it is public knowledge, but this is a snapshot of Reagan Elementary. So as you can see, our English Language Arts indicator and our mathematics indicator are both in great performing areas. What is neat to know too is that previously we were in the yellow and orange, so we have increased from year to year. The one area where we are low is much like the district, which is the suspension rate. As we dive into this deeper, we can actually see that this needs to be looked at not like a grain of salt, but it needs to be looked at specifically, because suspension rate can mean a lot of different things. When we actually look at how our suspension rate increased, it actually was only a couple of students that increased this rate, because it's every time that somebody gets suspended, this counts into our rate. So it could be one person who gets suspended over and over and over again, and unfortunately that would make the rate go up. What does that mean for Reagan? It means we need to do something to help that one or few students that is increasing our rate, and we want to decrease their suspension times so that we are providing them more interventions at school so that the behavior is curbed before we even get to a suspension rate. One of the things that the district asked us to get feedback on was how we could help our students with disabilities, specifically with decreasing their suspension rates and increasing their graduation rates. So in looking at the year past, there's some things that we already have in place that we are currently using in our LCAT program. Transition team support, creating new programs of support, after school programs, ACEs at Title I sites. Our elementary site has a push-in teacher for academic support. We have secondary gets extra period stipends for academic support. We now offer summer school to our students. We have supplemental resources that help align to our rigorous standards. And we also have implementation of the positive behavior intervention and support system, which to us, that means PAC Pride. So when you hear those kids come home and talk about paw tickets, that's our PBIS program. So in the meeting, we talked about different ways that we could suggest to the district to help use these funds to help, again, decrease suspension and increase graduation for students with disabilities. Some things that parents suggested were after-school enrichment programs based off of science and technology. And of course, those after-school enrichment programs would be free and available at non-Title I sites. We also talked about using funds for webcast education tutorials to help parents at home with examples, something like a base 10 system or how to help them at home with reading. We talked about using funds for clubs and extra interventions at recess time, such as Playworks. We talked about possibly the district using funds to make sure that our teachers are trained on how to include special education students into their classrooms, as well as making sure that our classified employees are also trained in how to work with special education students. We talked about using the funds to help reduce kind of the numbers in the classroom, or to have them consider that if we are going to dual enroll students, such as special educations, and include them into the general education students, that we need to provide a cap to that classroom and possibly make that number smaller than the state average. And last but not least, one of the questions that was brought forth by parents is, so based off of the programs that we are doing, what does this look like? Are they working? Are they not working? What type of evaluations are being done to make sure that these systems are actually helping decrease suspension and increase graduation? So with all of these things that were suggested from parents, as well as questions that were provided from parents, I now take this information and I take it back to the district. And then as a whole district, every school site brings this together, and then we work on that and put that into our plan for the next 3 years. If you have anything you would like to add or anything that comes to mind, please don't hesitate to email me at Gibson, which is KACEYGIBSON @CUSD.com. Safety always tends to be a number one topic or something that's on the forefront of everyone's minds nowadays. The good thing about safety is it is a fluid system. It is an ongoing plan of action because it is not something that is just set in stone. It's something that we kind of have to adapt as times go on, or unfortunately as things happen in our society. One thing that we talked about in the meeting was walkouts. There are various walkouts nationally that are coming up that our district is well aware of. Most of these items are being dealt with at the secondary level, as this is not something that I talked about with the parents at the meeting that we necessarily want to teach our students about what a walkout necessarily is. And I also talked about how employees of the district are under board policy during their work hours, and thus we have to remain neutral. So it's not something that we can partake in. If we want to participate in the walkout, then that's what Saturday, March 24th is for. Another thing we talked about with parents at the meeting was just getting some input with them with regards to teaching our students about a lockdown versus hide, running, and fighting. And then we also talked about other parent concerns. So some things that the parents brought forth is maybe not necessarily always using the term active shooter, because that's not necessarily always the case when it comes to an emergency on campus. So maybe just using the term on-site emergency with our students. We also talked about possibly teaching our students to find their nearest exit, which actually is a great idea. So for example, to teach our students, when you're in the classroom, where's your nearest exit? When you're at PE, where's your nearest exit? When you're at recess, where's your nearest exit? And the nearest exit may be into or out of a building, but it also could be running off campus in case of an emergency. These are new types of drills that we're actually going to have to practice with our students, and it's going to take a lot of coordination and planning, and we are in the process of kind of working this out to see exactly how we can roll this out with our students. But in the meantime, we work with our students on listening to an adult. An adult will tell you exactly what you need to do in any type of emergency situation. So that's something that you can reiterate with your children at home, is just whenever there is type of an emergency, whether it's a drill or a real life situation, they need to listen to the adult on campus or whoever is with them at the time. There was also some concerns brought forth with parents with regards to closed campus. And I just want to address that a little bit. So in Clovis Unified, we do not have any campuses that are closed off, meaning fencing all around of our sites. That is something that our school district has been built on, that we are community schools. We do not keep the community out. And nowadays people probably are saying, well, really, we want to keep some community members out. So when we think of community members, actually the community members are our biggest resource. You guys are the ones that will call in with a suspicious car before we even see it sometimes. You guys will notice a dog on campus as you drive by. You will notice a car that's parked in the parking lot that's not in a usual parking spots that's preoccupied during the day. Our community really is our best resource when it comes to things or people or items coming onto our campus. Also, law enforcement has recently worked with us too on a fence may be a visual cue for keeping people out, but in the turn, if our students actually have to leave campus for an emergency, it's going to make it harder for them to get out. It's going to lock them in. So in situations where you look at events where the people had to run from a scene, the fences actually deterred people and it slowed down people from getting away from the emergency. So that's another reason why our law enforcement is saying, don't worry about putting fencing up, because it's not going to matter at this point. If people want to get in, they're going to get in regardless, and we want to wait for our kids to get out. Another thing that we talked about at our meeting was me bringing back some ideas to the district about possibly increasing supervision, whether it's with regards to cops or guards or armed cops on individual campuses, and not just one that's a roving one. We are lucky because we do have 2 officers right next door at the secondary site, being at our Reagan campus, but that's just something to bring forth to the district that I will express a concern from our area, is that we would like to see an increased visibility of law enforcement on our campus to help with anything that might present as an emergency to our students at a later date. If you have anything else that concerns you at this time, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Again, this is something that I constantly think about as the principal, and with my own kids' safety too at their school. It's just always on the forefront of my mind as well. Last but not least, we talked about the Idoc Rubric, which was, Idoc stands for Intercultural and Diversity Advisory Council. And this is a rubric that the district uses. We used to use this just with staff, but now we're going over it with students and parents so that we can get a full rating from all stakeholders on how we are doing with our diversity and culture at our site. It's actually a great conversation to bring forward. I love that we're being transparent about these issues now, because it's giving people an opportunity to express their concerns and to let us know as a school, as a rating, how we can definitely improve with things such as hiring for diversity at our school, or training our teachers on different cultural differences, or how we do multicultural education at our school, or when we're looking at focus groups, are we looking at them based off of cultural competency? And there's all these things that we look at. And so at the meeting, we actually kind of dove a little bit deeper into the rubric and rated the school. And if you would like to participate in this on a deeper level, don't hesitate to contact me at your earliest convenience. At the end of the meeting, I asked for any other questions, comments, or concerns at this time. And one of the questions brought forth was about Campus Club. When is Campus Club going to come and talk to our parents at a parent meeting? I told them that I have been in direct contact with Campus Club all throughout the school year. They are well aware that we are growing another 120 to 150 students. They are well aware that we are going back to AM, PM traditional kindergarten. And the district is also working with us on possibly bringing in some more portables to compensate for our growth. And in turn, our Campus Club will be able to use those portables after school. So that will help decrease our waiting list that we've already had for this school year, but then also for the next school year. So we're moving in the right direction with regards to Campus Club. Another thing that was brought forward was the front parking lot is just a mess when it comes to people pulling in and waiting to get in and parking. And I reminded the parents at the meeting that that was a result of our last Sarc survey. So the last Sarc survey, parents said that they would like that parking lot open to the community and to take it away from staff. And we did that to help out with kindergarten, Campus Club, and preschool. But unfortunately, we still do have some parents who are using the red zone as a parking stall or leaving their cars unattended to go look at their children at kindergarten. So remember, that is a small parking lot. It is not meant to be used as a park your car in a red zone and run to get your child. If that is the case, we do ask that you use larger parking lots if you want to park your vehicle. And again, red zones does not necessarily mean parking. Red zones is a non-parking, not even a loading and unloading zone. That's the reason for the red curbs. So that was also brought forward. And with new meetings coming up, we have some meetings coming up in April. The Clovis East Area Idoc meeting is on April 24th at 6 p.m. at Oraz Elementary School. If you're interested in going to that, I do have 4 parents who came last time who I definitely will invite again. But if you're interested in joining us, you are more than welcome to represent Reagan that evening. Just let me know. And April 26th is another Talk with Mrs. Gibson meeting at 8:30 a.m. or 6 p.m. And I'm hoping that the 6 p.m. one will now be a live meeting. This last one was just not really doable with it being a PTC meeting as well. I just did not want to keep everyone online for a long evening. So thank you for being flexible, and hopefully you were able to see this PowerPoint. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via phone, come in person, email me with regards to making Reagan a better place. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.